Hey, Susan.
Good morning, Bin Bin. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes. Luis said he will be a little late. So we'll see if it's a quiet meeting today.
Yeah, just okay.
Yeah, so let me set up my screen while we're waiting. Okay, move things around a little bit.
Hello, Susan. Hello, Benjamin.
Good morning, Yi. Here in my notes window. Can everyone see my screen? Oops, sorry.
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, we don't have that much in the PR list today. I see Xinghe just joined. Good morning, Xinghe. The first one is your PR at 1041. I left maybe 2 comments. Just gonna scroll down to latest
Yeah,
update.
I saw them. One of it I have removed the related word because if you remember it is about the re-enable the age policy add-on and it is
Yeah.
fixed for now, so I removed it.
Okay.
Yeah. So for another comment, it is about to add some context about age policy add-on. Uh, I'm actually I'm not sure where and how much should I input on the about the age policy add-on context.
Sure. So what are the So like if the customer doesn't know what Azure policy is, they would read this document and they will wonder, oh, there's an option to um, you have Ratify with the Azure policy add-on versus without the Azure policy add-on. Like, so what advantage, like what is the scenario where they would benefit from using the Azure policy add-on?
I'm not very sure what is the benefit. The benefit mostly is about the customer wants to use managed gatekeeper AKS managed gatekeeper version, not the open source version of gatekeeper. It depends. In fact, the root reason that I write this condition is about when customer already enabled the age policy add-on. So and then the steps to install the Ratify might be a little different if they already enable the add-on. So
does Azure Policy add-on have any public documentation? Maybe like just a brief sentence.
yeah, it
would
should
be enough?
have, but it might be in multiple document because it is not only policy add-on itself, it is also related to Azure policy, and Azure policy is an individual service on Azure.
Yeah. Okay. I can. How about we work on this offline? Like, I think all we
Sure,
need
sure.
is a couple of sentences, not like a huge document explaining
Get
your
it.
policy. So maybe just like a, it's like, oh, if you're coming from this scenario, you need to follow this set of instruction. But just to give some
Get it.
context.
Just like something that customer can distinguish what scenario they are on. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Get
And
it.
if they see this Azure policy, like versus if they're not using it, they wouldn't be like, oh, am I missing out on something? That's like, is that a feature that I should use? But it's actually like more of a, are you on the managed Azure path versus are you just using the maybe the cluster with Azure ACR? Because currently we only have this documentation, right? Like Ratify with
Get it.
Azure, but it doesn't really say, maybe you're only just working with the container registry, or maybe you're working with the AKS cluster. We don't have that separation today.
Get it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Yi.
Yeah, I think maybe it's better that we can add a link to Azure Policy add-on so that user can take a deep look at that link to understand better, just to give some
Sure.
background.
Yeah. Maybe it's also like a good entrance path. They'll be like, oh, there's this managed option that I can take advantage. Maybe they'll start using the Azure services. I don't know. just a thought.
Yes.
Cool.
I will update later.
Thank you. Yeah, ping me anytime if you have a question
no.
of which link is better, anything like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next PR 1058, the PR on the health probe. So Binbin, what I was running into yesterday, so I've set the default port to be 9090, right, for the health probe, because that's the default gatekeeper uses. Which is interesting. So what happened is once I put the default port to 9090 for the health probe, our HA test fails. So it looks like some dependencies that we install for the HA scenario may be running at 9090. Binbin, do you know what that might be?
Will it be Dapper or Redis? Or not Redis? I don't I don't have much context on that. I need to check the code.
Yeah.
So if you change the port to other number, it will pass. Is that correct? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so I have left a comment. Like I was watching how the test would run, like every run takes forever. But I ended up switching it to 99. So just checking with the group here. Obviously, we set a default. We want it to work out of the box. So all the tests that we run should not conflict with our default port. So does anyone know if anything runs at a default port of 9099? If we're happy with 9099, then we can stay at that. Yeah, so Vivian is ready for another round of review. So please have a look when you get a chance.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's everything in our PR list. And on the agenda, I've added the top item to be just like a checkpoint for RC8 release. So let me bring up the milestone. Issues. Milestone. RC8. Sorry, if you can hear that noise, that's my cat in the background. She's probably saying she's hungry or she wants to get in some room. So the only code related one I think we're pending is the readiness probe. Is that correct? Junchen and Binbin, are you working on any code PRs that needs to go into RC8?
I don't. Yeah, I don't have any new PS RC8.
Yeah, for neither do I. But it should be pointing to 1.0, right?
Junchen, just to confirm, so you're working on a code item that's going into 1.0. So
Yeah,
you're pretty clear for RC8.
yeah, I think that's it.
Yep. So Binbin, does it sound good that if maybe this afternoon we can sync up, maybe block like 30 minutes to cut the branch for RC8? There will be like a few PRs like moving the dev files around and then bumping up the version in our chart. So then if we cut the branch today, the PMs and Louise, they can work on the release note tomorrow. So then we'll be on schedule for tomorrow's release.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and also we have like some internal meetings tomorrow. We can also discuss again, but I'll send you an invite for this afternoon.
Oh, sorry for interrupting. So,
Yeah.
is Ratify will be released recently, or it
RC5?
will be RC8? Sorry.
Yeah, so RC8 is currently due by September 8th.
Oh,
And after RC8, V1 would come maybe next week or in 2 weeks. That we're not set on the September 15th date for GA yet. Is there any concerns, Xinghe?
no much confirmed to me. Just I used to think it is 1 month one release.
Yeah, yeah, Yi or Feynman, do you want to add some context on our release schedule?
I don't have any special context. If we have all planned items could be finalized, I think we can release as we scheduled previously.
Yeah, Xinghe, like my understanding is we want to GA as soon as we can, so that people would take a look at the project. So it is our goal to GA soon. And before RC8, like RC6, RC7, we've been releasing on a monthly cadence. And RC8 is short because it's kind of like a bug fix release. So that's why we only have 2 weeks.
Mhm. Yeah, it's no problem from my side. Yeah.
Okay. Would you be so in RC7, we've started supporting the multi-architecture image because you've previously, I think you've raised the concern that it doesn't support ARM64. Have you been able to validate that?
I validated it. It should be fine now. I think it should be fine now. I changed the MCR build script same as the the upstream script using Docker build X, and it should work for now.
Okay, thanks. So after we release RC8, if you see any issue that we must fix before 1.0, do let us know. We still have 1 to 2 weeks of buffer
Yeah.
time before we finalize on V1.
Yeah, actually, I just raised an issue around 1 hour ago. It is about the certificate store, but I'm not sure if it this should be before the V1. It is about different certificate stores in the certificate store in different namespace, but they share the same name. So for this scenario, because when verifier refers to the cert, it only mentions the name, not the namespace. The second one, the second issue. So in this scenario, it will have some the verification result might be might not be correct because I in fact I have two certificate store, but they have the same name in different namespace, but their contacts might be different. So in this scenario, it seems only the latest one, latest created one will be loaded.
Yeah, that's correct. So currently our CRDs, we don't respect the namespace of the resource. We just have like a global namespace.
Yeah, but the certificate store is namespace the resource. So you can yeah, so you can create one in Gatekeeper system and also create one in default namespace, and they can share the same name. So this bug is might happen in this scenario.
Yeah. So am I just to confirm? The behavior of Ratify is currently one would override the other, right? Because kind of like we keep the certificate in a map and we don't use the namespace as the key. Is that your observation?
I think so, but I'm not very sure. I think it is always the later updated one will override in the Ratify cache.
Yeah. Your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question to Xinghe is, why did you install two certificate store in different namespace?
It depends because first we cannot anyway we cannot avoid a customer prevent a customer to install the two certificate stores with the same name is the first step. The second is that maybe customer installed one certificate store in Gatekeeper system namespace, but he has no idea about there exists one in this namespace. Then he create another when the next time he creates another certificate store, he might create one with the same name.
Yeah, but the multi, I mean, the namespace multi-tenancy currently Ratify doesn't support it.
So what do you expect to happen? Would you think that we should, because the certificate store is referenced by the verifier, so do you think the verifier should only be able to reference certificate store in its own namespace?
Yes, I think if we have multiple certificate store in if the certificate store is namespace resource, I think in my understanding, I think when verifier is referring the cert, it should be allowed to somehow let customer be able to input the namespace.
I see. So we want like an additional property that says, okay.
Maybe additional property, maybe we just namespace dash resource name, something like that.
Got it, got it.
But slash, sorry, not dash.
Yeah, so I'll be able to investigate this.
No problem, no problem.
And we can continue the discussion on the thread. Sorry, I cut you off earlier.
No problem. I just try to confirm. This is not a namespace multi-tenant user case. It's just because user installed the such store in another namespace. However, from Ratify point of view, when Ratify refers to the store, it doesn't include the namespace scope, right? So it's I mean, this is not a multi-tenant case, but it's because of user installed store in a different
Currently,
namespace.
I think it is not a multiple tenant scope, but if we have a multiple scope scenario, I think this issue might be more serious.
Yeah. I mean, currently Ratify doesn't support the namespace-based multi-tenancy.
Yes, I know.
So in this case, my understanding is the same user install the store in a different namespace. However, when Ratify refers to the store, it doesn't include the namespace scope, right? So the same name cause some conflict.
Yes, but yes, correct.
Yep. Sajay added a comment that we should also double check with Surtag. So Sajay, is the question to Surtag more like, is it common to reference CRs with the name or a combination of namespace with the resource name? Is that what we should confirm?
Yeah, because I remember there was a concern that gatekeeper is not, I mean, gatekeeper's multi-tenancy is also in question here. So what would be a good pattern for us to establish? Like, I think Singha brings an idea of kind of using a namespace flash. If that works across different components, then it can be consistent for the customer experience, right? Otherwise, for Ratify, you'll have a slash. For something else, they would have to do some other identity or some other scoping. So at least keep the construct the same across different CRDs or different add-ons.
Yeah. Yeah, or should Ratify controller only be able to read resource from its own namespace?
I think that's why I want you to ask Surtag and kind of like see what's the better recommendation for security in these things. And maybe look at Keyone also, because it is an admission controller that might have some pre-established patterns, right?
Yeah. Cool. So this one requires further discussion, so we'll follow up on the thread. Thank you for bringing this up, Singhe.
No problem. Also, thank you.
So we were, hi, Luis. We were previously just discussing RCA status. So we think we'll be able to merge all the code items today. And then I will work with Binbin this afternoon to cut a branch. So we're on track to release RCA this week. Does that sound good?
I'm sorry, Susan, can you repeat your question?
Yeah, so before, I think earlier during the meeting today, the status for RCA is we're able to merge all the code related PRs today.
Mm-hmm.
And we're thinking about cutting a branch this afternoon, like after all the PRs we need is in.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I remember now. So we wanted to yeah, that makes sense. So are we sorry, I had to join late. Are we on track then to merge everything today?
Yes, for RC8.
Okay. So yeah, so then let's cut the branch today after all the PRs have been merged. And this would be sort of our like after this we should be like, did we get any like and I missed a little bit of the feedback from Shinya about do we need to do any more work for the add-on? Sorry, do we need is Shinya requesting any?
Yeah, from add-on side, in fact, I already bumped to RC7, but I have not opened the Rego policy and HA1. Without these features, currently I do not have any issues.
Okay. Okay, so no requests. Okay, cool. So yeah, so then I'm fine cutting the branch today.
Yeah, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah. Can you check the issues? I also saw some new issues. I think RC8 we will mostly do the bug fixes, right? So if we still have some issue that we need to fix, maybe we can consider add those fix into RC8. Otherwise, anyway, we need to fix it before we run, right? So maybe we can take a look at the issues and also Xinhe's issue. Made me think that although currently we didn't support namespace tenant, multi-tenant, but maybe as you, Susan, you also mentioned, the Ratify should only refer to the configuration that's under its own namespace, not from other place. So see here, we still have several bugs we can maybe charge to see whether we need to include it in RC8.
Okay, sure. So it's so you think before we resolve, like come up with the action item, we should delay RC8? So I think this would require some discussion. Like, let's go through the item first. So the first one is timeout from the record server that causes end-to-end test.
Yeah, it's on the Tira's E2E test, the cosine Tira's E2E test. And I noticed that sometimes it will fail. So in that case, we need to manually rerun that failed test, and then it usually pass in the next run. So it's just an unstable E2E test, and I think we need to do some retry logic here to make it more stable.
Got it. So this is not GA must, and it's also a test issue. Like the
Right.
fix is most likely on the test.
Yes.
Should I put it to future?
Yeah, I think it can be done after V1.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Maybe you can also remove charge.
Yes. Okay. What's the button to remove? If I click it, no, it just goes into the triage.
On the right, on the labels, click right this icon. Yeah. Yes.
Got it. Thank you. I created an issue yesterday, 1060. As a discussion thread that we should keep track of, what are the considerations for bumping up the CRD versions to 1.0. So I also pinged Certac in the internal channel. Haven't got a response yet, but checking with the audience here, Feynman and E, is it a common behavior? Like when we GA ratify, the CRDs should also get a version bump?
I agree with Susan. If we have those API versions marked as beta, it will be a little bit confusing for users, since the project version has been GA'd, but the API are still showing beta. I think we have a negative test case we have a bunch of negative test cases to test the behaviors of Ratify CRDs. I think it might be a good opportunity to test the stability and also the expected behaviors by Ratify CRD. If we can have those negative test cases passed, I think we can request to upgrade the Ratify CRD versions from beta.
Yeah, and this one would also depend on the outcome for the general direction we're going with the namespaces. Even though we've defined our interface to be like generic, like everything's just a map, but I think if we introduced referencing by, let's say if we added a namespace property, that'll kind of be a breaking change to our CRD definition. Yeah, so at the moment, I think for the CRD bump, we should, it has a dependency on the namespace discussion. So we're, in short, like we're not ready to bump up the version yet. We should have the namespace discussion first. And just to check, Xinghe, for the same name. Oh, sorry, just admitting Binbin and Xinghe from the waiting room. Maybe their software crashed, so giving them a couple of seconds to join. Hi, Xinghe, are you online?
Yeah. Sorry. My Zoom crashes.
Yeah. My Zoom crashed too. No worries. Xinghe, for the certificate store issue 1061, is this a blocker for the scenario, or do you think it's like a rare case that the customer will run into, just to understand how common the...
Currently, I do not think it is a blocker, but I think it is anyway. It should be an enhancement. Anyway, we'd better to prevent a customer to create a crash into a scenario that maybe we do not support or something.
Yeah, it's definitely good to start the discussion, like what do we do with namespaces? Like previously, we've just been kind of taking everything in. Yeah. So I haven't put a milestone yet. So we'll have our discussion and then we will put them in the right milestone. And the last one is verification report sample for 1.0 is different.
It is a document update. I don't think it needs a milestone because it is when I'm reading the verify report document about its definition and sample. I find that the sample is different from the definition, so it is just a doc update. I may discuss it with Binbin later.
Thanks for catching
offline.
it. Binbin, should I assign it to you?
Yeah, please go ahead.
And I'll remove the triage, and our doc should be ready by B1, so it's all up to date. So back to the discussion on the RC8 release. So these two still requires more discussion. It might take some time. So the question is like, do we want to wait or do we want to go ahead with RC8 release?
Yeah, actually, my point is if we can definitely fix the at the V1 time frame if it takes time.
So we were
Sajid, Luis.
keep in
Go
mind
ahead.
that we were looking at releasing V1 before the Shanghai holidays. So this would, I mean, if we need to prioritize any more work, this will delay the V1. The RC8 is basically the last milestone that we should be code complete, and just the next couple of weeks we were anticipating being bug fixes. So again, if we, I'm open, or we're open to, like, if we want, we can extend the date when we want V1, but the more work we try to get in there, the longer it's gonna take. And Shanghai leaves at the end of this month for a week.
Which is the item you're talking about?
The namespace.
I see.
Yeah, this is just one that requires more investigation. Like, what's the cost of work to respect namespace, and what is the expected behavior? Like, as previously we said, okay, should we just currently we just ignore the namespace, right? That's why we have this. If you have the same name resource in two different namespace, they just override each other.
Okay. Can this not be a minor feature, like a feature in a minor version, 1.1 or something?
Yeah, my point is actually Ratify doesn't support namespace multi-tenant case.
Yes.
So, however, in this case, the user install another certificate store with the same name, with the same name in a different namespace, right? However, this is not a namespace multi-tenant user case. It's just the customer installed the same certificate store. So one way to do that is that we can clearly say that in the document that we don't support multi-tenancy. So the cert store should be in certain namespace or something like that.
Yeah, I think this is more like a documentation issue. I think you're right. I would not try to solve this in like a very short window right now.
Okay.
But we should definitely consider this for a minor update, if possible, because HA is also, is HA a part of 1.0 or HA is a post, right?
HA is currently in experimental flag.
Okay.
Go ahead, Luis.
Yes. Well, yeah. No, I was just gonna say we're not shipping HA as a fully support, like it's experimental.
Okay. Sounds good.
So, what we expect that during the installation, Ratify is installed into certain namespace, right? So currently it is the same namespace as the gatekeeper, right? Or user can specify.
Yeah, I think it's configurable.
Yeah, but I think we should. So, yeah.
My hope is that we recommend that they install the same thing as gatekeeper.
Yeah. So in all our docs, it's it has that namespace gatekeeper parameter.
Okay, cool.
So that means at this moment we need to make the user know that the CRD that we should we should honor the CRD installed in the gatekeeper namespace, right? So we should put this kind of note in our document so that the user know that they don't need they don't install especially this case certificate store in another namespace, because it's not a multi-tenant user case. We don't support that. It's we need to make sure user apply the certificate store in the same.
Yeah, sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. I'm not sure if it's my end, but I think you've summarized it correctly. Like, we need to add the documentation, and today the Ratify behavior is we read everything from any namespace, and we'll use this issue to track the discussion, like if that is the right behavior. But at the moment, we'll state in our doc that's the current behavior and is our current limitation, and we'll improve over it in the future iterations.
Yeah, I think Xinhe, you can comment whether this works for you.
I think it's fine. Anyway, we have a document. It's much better.
Yeah, thanks, Xinhe. And the other one is Ratify CRD. So if we agree to do the version bump, should this happen in RC8?
I would prefer we mark this item as V1, since we still have negative test cases for Ratify CRDs, especially how users configure Ratify CRDs. We will be able to see the stability of Ratify CRDs and also the Ratify instance. If we don't have any negative cases, which are, how do you say that? If we can measure that Ratify instance is stable and the Ratify CRD behaviors are expected as our test cases, I think we are confident to mark Ratify CRDs as stable.
Yeah, so Luis, is it okay to include this code change in 1.0?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we should make it before like for 1.0, but I think Feynman has a good point that the additional time would allow us to test the negative cases here.
Oh, so then I want to confirm. So, Ratify has a few features that will be marked as experimental, even after V1, right? So is there any experimental feature that relies on a Ratify CRD?
The true experimental feature we have is dynamic plugin, and the other one is HA. Yeah, I don't think they have any CRD dependency.
Okay, so that means no impact on those two experimental features.
Yep.
No, there shouldn't be any impact. Yeah.
I may have one quick question. The policy CRD, I remember it is currently at alpha. Will it skip beta directly to V1 or is it will bump to beta 1 when Ratify comes to V1?
Yeah, that's a good point. Binbin.
Yeah, I agree. But also, I wonder if in the future, if we add any new CRD, then what's the progress of like bumping up from alpha beta to V1?
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, so I pinged Sartak on like if you could share the roadmap of how they like alpha, beta, and GA'd the gatekeeper CRD. So maybe he can share some insight on this as well. Binbin, would you be able to comment on this issue? Just for Xinhe's question, like, okay, if we have a new CRD, doesn't start from alpha and it just follows alpha beta to GA, or can every resource be at like different milestones?
Yeah, sure. I'll even comment.
Yeah, like what's the pattern that gatekeeper follows here? Yeah, thank you. So currently I've marked this as V1. But yes, requires further discussion. Back to our agenda. Sorry, where is our agenda? Right. so the next one is a GA release. So I just want to double check that if we need to move the date for 1.0. So back to our milestones. So we're going ahead with RC8 this week. And then our plan is to do negative testing, and then our depending on how our discussion with the CRD version bump goes, we might need to take the version up. Is this date still realistic? September 15th?
No, I think we've decided we will use 2 weeks. So right before Shanghai starts their holidays.
So, oh, do I have? I actually have permission to change it. So is it currently set for the 22nd or the 28th?
I think the 22nd. Because the holidays start on the 26th, right?
Holiday starts on, so KubeCon starts on 26th.
Yeah, so we said it was KubeCon, and so a lot of folks working on this project are attending KubeCon, so I think we decided on the 22nd.
Okay, so I will save the change. And yes, Luis, when you get a chance, please create the 1.1 release so we can then separate between future and.
Actually, you have also, if you do new milestone, we can do that right now.
Okay. Is it just called V1.1.0?
Yep.
And we don't go through RCs in this.
That's an interesting question. Let's hold on the creation of the 1.1 milestone and have a conversation.
Yeah. The question is like, what is the next milestone? Yeah. Okay.
We shouldn't have 8 release candidates before V1.1 for sure, but let's have more conversation around the time. And I do hope folks a draft of the release requirements and cadence for this. So I want to have that conversation.
Yeah, and also for GA, I think we had a couple of like documentation work. Something like how do we manage the branching strategy and things like that, right?
That's part of the conversation that I want to have. So yeah, let's hold a bit on that.
Okay. Cool. Next item is reviewing the negative test cases. So thank you, Feynman, for having the list and having the proposed assignments. Has everyone gotten a chance to review this document? I've left a few comments. Maybe we can just run through the document, Feynman.
Yeah. So I saw Susan left some comments and I already replied to those comments. So actually the first comments would be asking to cover the test cases for different operating system architecture. So I think since we have very limited bandwidth, and my thinking is that we can focus on the AMD first and then move to ARM64.
I've provided the VM name for the ARM64. So I feel like if we were testing with AKS, then the difference would be like what is the VM size that we use in the cluster configuration?
It depends. I think we will major cover the AMD and ARM64, but we don't have very specific requirements on which type of VM that we want to cover, we want to create.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is just an example on like if you need an ARM machine, this is one that would give you a different type of architecture. Because when I went into the configuration in the portal. It wasn't clear, like it wasn't just a AMD 64 versus ARM selection. But cool. Are we good with the area assignment? Any feedback on that? And we're agreeing to perform this set of validation over the next week, correct, Lena?
Yeah, I think we will have around 2 weeks to, I think we will spend maybe 2 or 3 days to finish all of those negative test cases and see which test cases we can detect any bugs or unexpected behaviors through these negative test case, and see which bug requires we create a new issue to track or fix before we run.
Yep.
Can we move to the next one? I think the registry connection timeout, this negative case, we may need more inputs from Shui or from our dev team.
Yeah. My question is, how do you simulate a timeout? What is the Ratify timeout? Like, what is the default timeout in the client? Maybe it's an Aura's client. Like, I wonder if I configured a registry that's so far away on the other side of the globe, would it trigger a timeout?
Basically, there are two kinds of timeout. One is you cannot connect to the registry. That's the connection timeout. That's needed to simulate that's just not set up a registry and point to nowhere, and it will get timeout, right?
Okay.
Right. Another thing is that is the registry is connected, but it does not return any responses. So that's the connection timeout we might have. So that one is easy. You can just set up a dummy registry server and just return nothing, but hold the connection.
I think
I see.
Yeah, I think we want to cover the second case.
That it doesn't return anything.
Yeah. Since the second case is more like a negative case, when users are using Ratify in production, the first one seems like users are new to Ratify, and there might be some troubles with configuring Ratify with their container registry. But I think the purpose is to test the error handling when the registry server side disconnected or timeout when working with Ratify.
Yeah. And is the expectation, like, so Auras would report an error, and the expectation here is just Ratify wrapping that error and showing it to the user? Is that the correct thought?
I think we don't mind where is the logs come from, whatever comes from Auras or whatever comes from Ratify is native logger. I think we can identify if the outputs, if the Ratify standout logs meets our needs, and see if the output is friendly to our end users, and see if we have sufficient logs for troubleshooting purpose.
So that is the actual validation here, right? Like that if Ratify can give a good at supporting the user to troubleshoot. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I don't have other question with registry related scenarios. Binbin, Jungchen, do you have any other questions related to a verifier or the certificate store? I think there is a
for the verifier, I think most cases are related to the trust policy. But for now, the notation trust policy, we are just using some like default registry scope and default trust identity, which was set to start that will match all the registry, any registry scope or any trust identity. So I'm thinking if this negative test would be like valid in our case.
Yeah, maybe the scenario is like the person manually deleted something.
Yeah, that
Is
also
that the
makes sense.
scenario in mind, Feynman?
Yeah, actually, we have default values for notation trust policy in the verifier CID, right? But I think it is also open for users to configure or customize those values like registry scope or trust identities. Those are configurable for users. The default value are passed with our end-to-end test case. That means we have we are confident about our positive case or common test cases. So we want to cover some test cases which are not covered by our end-to-end testing.
Okay.
But I do believe that we may have some legal policy related configuration which are missing in this table. So maybe we can add that case and see if any legal policy related negative case for the verifier.
Go ahead, Yi.
Yeah, I think we can focus firstly on the current policy because Rego requires additional configuration as Xinhe mentioned, it is by default not enabled. So we can focus on the current way of the policy handling. And I also agree that, I also agree that we should test the trust identities and the registry scopes because that is the also the key of the integrity and authenticity feature because the user needed to know who should I trust, right? That is the identity that the user needed to specify in the trust identity. And also what are the scope of artifacts I'm going to verify. So I think these two are important and we can test it to see whether there are any issues.
Yeah, sounds good. And Feynman, I like this note about gathering the logs. And I also made a comment on, could we just use the column to capture our result? And then we can also use this as the basis of our TSG.
Actually, the result column is used to gather the result, the test result of the of each case. For example, we should fill out pass or failed for each case, and we can capture the detailed error logs from the Ratify standout logs or Kubernetes logs at the end of the stock. So we can identify if those logs are meet our expectations or not. So we can copy and paste the detailed logs into the test results section, but put the test results passed or failed on the result column.
Okay, sounds good. Then do you mind having like another table like this for the test result? Because if we all append to the same list, it might just like be like hard to find things. So maybe a table works better. So then we just paste our thing into maybe just sections, the different components we're testing. That'll be good.
Yeah, I think I can divide the test results into maybe 5 subsections including all of those test areas that we want to cover in this doc, in this native test. So I will divide those into different sections.
Yeah, and I'm hoping like if we all captured the error message in the log, then we could just like copy them into our TSG or FAQ. So then customers can quickly identify like the fix.
Yeah, I think that should be the next step. If we can identify this behavior or this error logs is not very helpful or which requires further information, we can document it in our TSG, in our FAQ, and guide users how can they find helpful information on Ratify docs or in our MS Learn docs.
Yeah, sounds good. Cool. So we're at time. Is there anything people like to discuss that we haven't covered? We can add it to the agenda for next week. Okay, we've covered everything. That's good. Then, yeah, thanks for joining, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.